Okay, so we're up to the fact that Year 7, 2004, and we sort of had more like a primary model, I guess, for the Year 7 then. Mrs. Heinrich did all the other subjects and I did maths, so I enjoyed doing that with the students, the maths, but we couldn't do the middle school because that was it, Year 7, so you can't run a middle school with just one grade. And by about the next year, Mrs. Fraser came on board as a part-time deputy because the school was at the stage where it needed a deputy. And I don't know if you actually know that Mrs. Fraser was at the school before that. Do you know that? What class she taught? As a prep teacher. She was a fine prep teacher. I tell you, I'd have her on my staff any day tomorrow. And she was great with the little kids, but she is actually a secondary teacher, but she was great in the prep. So she took on the role of deputy principal.
What year was that?
Sorry?
What year was that?
I think it was
2005.
5, that's what I thought.
Because she'd taken that term off at the end of 2004 and then came back.
Yeah. 2005. And I'm bringing her in here in the conversation because the college song is something that I'd like to talk to you about. For you it's just a college song, but it was again something that was burning inside and being birthed inside of Mrs. Fraser and myself for a couple of years. We hadn't got round to a college song. We wanted to have a college song. I don't have the skills to write it, but Mrs. Fraser actually wrote and did the music and everything for the college song. And I need to tell you that at awards night last year, I had one of the politicians sitting next to me, and he said, "I like that." He said, "I like that song." And he said, "Who wrote it?" And I said, "Our head of secondary wrote that." And he said, actually this was a bit of a joke, but he said, "Would she rewrite the Australian national anthem?" So obviously he didn't like Advance Australia Fair. But it's very, I mean, I know good music when I hear it, and I think it's an excellent college song, and I love the way it's being rolled out year by year, and more students are knowing it. Mrs. Broderick from the church, Jenny Broderick, who was in the library at that stage, she actually did the arrangement. Mrs. Fraser did the tune, but she did the arrangement for the different instruments in there. And we decided that it would be good to unveil this at the 2007 awards night, and that's when it was presented for the first time, because I was stepping back from principal, and because this was something that we were doing together, we decided that it would be unveiled then, before I stepped right back and a new principal came in. Buildings was another thing that we were going to talk about. So most of you wouldn't know that every Christmas holidays for the first few years of the college, it wasn't a matter of it's built, it's ready, and we just move in. Every Christmas holidays we'd be watching the enrolments grow, and all of a sudden we didn't say no to people because we wanted to grow the school. And so it would get to about mid-December and it would be, all these new students want to come to the college. We have no room. There were some years that we used to get around and talk with one another and say, well, we could hire our marquee, and Mr. Fraser and Mr. Davis, that's Josh Davis and Sarah Davis's dad, they would stand guard at night and sleep there in the marquee to look after the kids' books and all the equipment in there. And that was how, some years, how we had to sort of go into the beginning of school. We never did the marquee thing because I always felt that it would be too cumbersome. But that's how the sheds were built. Those sheds, the library and the gym shed, were actually, the library one, first of all, was a prep room, and we just built a shed. It was cheap, it was easy, it was quick, and we could get that done. And then there would be all these working bees with people who'd come in and line it and paint it. And I tell you, every school holidays, we worked flat out to get buildings to start the next year. And then when the second prep class came, we were in the same position. We weren't ready for permanent buildings at that stage, and so we built another shed. And you know, if you go to the library, they're quite functional, aren't they?
We used it for drama. It was a good little shed.
That's right, you did too. I think they're great rooms. They make great classrooms. They've got some, we've worked out what's going to happen in them next year. But if I was a teacher, I'd be happy to teach in one of those instead of a small classroom. But we got to the stage where we had to start doing permanent buildings. All these are temporary. They'll all go. Sheds will go. They'll be one of the last to go. All of A, B and C will go. And our master plan is a circle, so we had to start somewhere. By that stage, our secondary students were needing specialty facilities. We needed a kitchen. We needed the home ec. We needed science labs. We needed all those sorts of things, an art room, etc., etc. And so we decided to put into an organisation called Block Grant Authority, BGA they're called, and that's where we put a proposal. It takes 2 years from when we put the proposal to when it's actually ready. First year, the year you go to the block grant, you say this is what we believe our school needs, you put this huge proposal, we would have to meet with these people from block grant and sell the whole idea to them, and then they would go away and decide if we get some money towards it, not the whole amount, but some money to help us. And it depends on how needy the school is, how much money you get. Now, because this was our first building, we were pretty needy. We were very needy, so we knew we would get a fair amount. And so we went to them with a proposal to build either I or J, I can't remember which one, and the ramp, because you've got to have facilities with a double story for wheelchair access and whatnot. And they gave us quite a reasonable amount, but by the time we went to get tenders, there was so much work going on that the builders were charging incredible prices, and we just felt it wasn't good stewardship of this money to build. So we made a decision we weren't going to build. We did it, and so did a whole lot of other schools, were saying, no, the cost per square type thing, the standard area cost, was too much. And it was simply because they had plenty of work and builders were putting in big tender prices. And so we made a decision we wouldn't go ahead. But I knew that we'd said to our parents we were going to cut the ground with our first permanent building, and I knew we had to do something. So Block Grant got back to us, said we've got all this money and nobody seems to want to build. So they offered us an incredible amount, percentage-wise. Instead of this amount, they offered us this amount if we would do a build. And so we decided we really needed the undercover area and a toilet block. And so we felt that would cut the ground, that would show our parents that we're here to stay, because the others weren't permanent buildings, and people sending their kids to a school that doesn't even have one permanent building, they could all be taken away, it was a bit dicey. Not the parents felt that, but we felt it was time we had to cut the ground and put a permanent building. So that's why we only built that. We were to build that plus one of the others. By the next year, building had changed and costs had come down, and that's when we built I and J, which put us in a really good position in terms of facilities, because we had almost everything we needed for secondary, and we could have got away, I guess, with just a big classroom for music and drama. But then the following year, we decided we loved the concept of a theatrette, and we talked about how we could use it. And I don't think it's being used quite the way we intended at this point in time, but I think as the years go on it will be. Certainly used for drama, it's great for that.
There's only 5 periods a week this year that it's not used.
Okay.
Maths is being taught with 50 kids.
Okay.
Life's all in here, so
Okay.
there's 50, 60
Okay, it's
kids.
getting closer to the model we wanted. What we wanted was to get even where we go across a couple of year levels and present something, and then breakout groups where they go to their either interest area or whatever. That was the concept we put to the people from BGA, and I need to tell you that they still, when they meet me, the BGA people say, we cannot believe how we funded that H block, Cheryl. And they still talk about it at Block Grant, because they actually came to the meeting, and we had, Mrs. Fraser and I, we had to do in the board a hard sell. They weren't convinced. There was a woman on Block Grant, and she had a vision for our vision, and I went away and I felt they weren't convinced, and I wrote a letter that was about 10 pages to make sure they had in writing everything that we'd covered and what our vision for using this was. And they came back and they gave us funding for this building. And they said schools are going 25 years before they get funding for something like this. And so we put the case that that might have been so 50 years ago or even 20 years ago. But now, for a school to be successful, you've got to be on an even playing field. You've got to have what the state school has, you know, across the road. We've got to have the same sort of facilities as soon as we can that other schools have, otherwise we're not going to grow. So that was very, very exciting when we got that. It's a big debt from this one, but then it was only classrooms, and we wouldn't be doing the library at this stage if it wasn't for the fact that there was what they call the Building Education Revolution, and there was a big amount came from the federal government, and we just don't say no when they give you $2.5 million. Who'd say no? Right? We certainly weren't about to say no, and although it's cost more than $2.5 million, it was a perfect opportunity. Do you know what's in that new library building? Yeah, it should be out for you guys.
Isn't it
well,
the
you're
media rooms or something?
Sorry?
Isn't there media rooms?
There are. Let me tell you. There's a huge library at the bottom. There are media rooms. There are 5 or 6. I think there's 6 media rooms where small groups, so a whole class will be able to go and work. You'll love it. You'll love it this time. Where a whole class can go in little groups into those media rooms. They're not soundproof like those ones here because that costs an arm and a leg. But for discussion things, for videoing and whatever, there's a green room. Do you know what a green room is? You do?
Green screen room.
Green screen room?
Green room here is in the theatre, so green screen is...
A green screen room, okay, which can be changed for blue. We'll just use different curtains and that.
Yep.
And that's where you can do the filming things that make you look as if you're flying.
We're not going to be able to use it. Yeah.
You'll have to come back and visit.
Yeah, we'll have to just come back
It'll be
for a whole
finished
week.
middle of this year.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Are we going to do like
Can we just have an
something
assignment with no purpose?
Oh, well,
We have a green
We'll
It's just a fun one.
you guys can get your creative juices going with... You guys need to do Australian Contemporary Cyber Drama Theatre, so you can do a whole lot of cyber drama stuff where you film it in there.
Australians, but in space.
Yes, and then justice appears.
Cyber drama, not like space idiocy. Cyber drama as in using technology to actually go live in a theatre format where, yeah, you've got and filming stuff and all of that.
Fun.
Now there'll also be, Alex has just asked, will the books going in there be censored? Now obviously he's got a concern about that. Because we have a certain ethos, there are some things that we run around the school. And they're things that you can get probably at other libraries, but for us, we try to be careful of it. As well as that, there'll be something that you older ones, I don't know if you'll get to use it, but we're calling it the UFO. It was, in fact, the architect said to us, where did you get the idea for that? And Mrs. Newell said, in my head. It just came out of her head, and it's a big area with computer games, and again they will be computer games that we think are appropriate. Probably have about 10 computers around it, and it just looks a bit like a UFO. It's going to be quite a feature of the library. Now probably the younger ones will go on it, but you guys can too in your breaks. There'll obviously be enough games that would interest certainly the boys and maybe some.
No Halo or Call of Duty 4.
No, we're not having those. So that's in the downstairs part. There'll be computers all around the wall, of course, for use. I'm wanting to put, this is a good chance.
This is future, so we're moving into future, which is part of
I'm
their
wanting
thing.
to put in, oh, I can tell you this.
Do it.
Do it. Let's do it. We're putting in a tiered, like a lecture thing with made out of vinyl, where a whole class can go and sit in this area and the teacher can present something, and it can be moved around sort of towards a wall or away from a wall. I wanted to have 2. I don't know if we've got the money for 2, but certainly 1.
Excited.
And it wouldn't matter whether it's secondary could use it just as well. They're very, very they're a substantial piece of furniture. I'm also wanting to put, or we're also wanting to put in some really comfy furniture for you older students who want to just sit and chat. Do you like that idea? You would. So it's going to be, we hope it's going to be a place that you really
Is
love.
that like classrooms upstairs?
Classrooms upstairs, 6 classrooms. But on one end there'll be 4 classrooms with operable walls, which can be moved, and I'm calling it, I think it may end up being called this, but it's just my name, the Great Hall, and it will take about 300 or 400 people upstairs. So in one big area. So we're believing it'll be multifunctional, and that was what we wanted. We went to see a whole lot of libraries, and they were pretty average, we felt, and they still cost all that money. So upstairs there's it's not a mezzanine floor, but upstairs isn't as big as downstairs, so there's this void area there that goes up like 2 stories as you come into the library, and then the upstairs is that there's 6 classrooms, a meeting room, and like a boardroom type of thing as well. So we're on a chaplain's office, so that you can see the chaplain and sort of wait and see them in a nice area with your parents if you want to go and talk about something there. So we think it's a good building. You know, you don't find out till you build it whether it works, but in principle we think it's a good building. We've tried our best.
Is it going to connect to the other building?
Not
Externally
initially.
only.
Not initially. Later we will. It was just too much because it would connect with the next one after G. That wouldn't connect to G. It'll connect to the next one up. So, but it's got verandas so that you can get to those rooms upstairs from the outside. It cost us a lot of money, but we felt we didn't want people traipsing through the library. We wanted access from the outside. And I don't know about the lockers, but we're trying to think of some way to incorporate lockers downstairs. Nothing's easy. Okay, I think I'm almost there. The library. I am. The library will be finished in June, July this year. So there'll be lots of movement on the station there, sort of moving things around. And so I just wanted to finish with 2 things that basically come from God's Word. And one is they've sort of sat with the whole school, everybody involved with the school from day one, is do not despise the day of small beginnings. And I'll explain that to you. So, do not despise the day of small beginnings. I remember when Suncoast, have you been to Suncoast Christian College or been pastored or whatever? Big school, you know, lots of kids. My son actually went to Suncoast when they met in a packing shed.
I taught drama there.
Did you?
Yep.
In a packing shed. And then the church would meet, and there was a sort of a packing shed. It was just a pretty yucky, ordinary building. And they'd pack up the desks on Friday for church on Sunday, then they'd get them all out. Now look at them, they're 30 years, aren't they? 30 years old.
31 this year.
31. We're 10. It's our 10th anniversary this year. So we've come a long way, I believe, in 10 years. The other scripture is, unless the Lord builds the house, we labour in vain. Now, I haven't got the references here, sorry. But unless the Lord builds the house, we labour in vain, which simply means if God's in it, it's going to work. If God isn't in it, we can work our little hearts out and it won't necessarily. It could come to something, but it won't be what it was meant to be. Right? And that's been our prayer all the way along the line is, Lord, I mean, we prayed very hard about different stages of the development of the college, and, you know, we may miss things at times, but the desire has been that this place would develop as the Lord wants it, and will be the school that He called for all those years ago. And thank you, students. It's been lovely. Now, I've just been asked, what's the projected enrolment for the college? That's a board decision.
Okay.
I can tell you what the board had decided earlier. Probably double stream, certainly double stream all the way through. Possibly about 750.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're very land poor, right?
So we don't have much.
We don't have a lot of land. However, I know schools in Sydney that have no land. They just go up in buildings. I don't know what the kids do. But I think once our library is open, I think that will take lunchtime, because it's lunchtime that's the problem. That'll take kids at lunchtime. We've split the lunch hours, which helps. As long as we've got a decent oval, and by your age, you guys just sit and have D&Ns, don't you?
Yeah.
You do, you just sit and talk.
Some boys go to the computer lab and the others go to the oval.
Yeah.
Some boys
So-
listen to our conversation.
I have to tell you that it's much more cost effective to run 3 streams in secondary.
Can I ask, because this is our anniversary year, listening guys, listen, the anniversary year, do you know if there's anything significant planned for this year as such, which will help us?
Is this what is the fun fest?
First fledglings fly the nest.
Didn't even confer. Well, for the first year I put fledgling as the college was a fledgling.
Okay.
And I guess, do you know the story of how eagles learn to fly?
Yeah, pushed out of the nest.
They do. The mother pulls
pushes
the
them
nest
out.
apart and pushes them out, and then as they're falling, free fall,
Fly or die.
no, the mother swoops under and catches them on the back. Isn't that lovely? And she brings them up, puts them back in the nest, and then pushes them out again. And by a few times they're sort of fluttering around and learn to fly. So I guess that was
Pushing a baby out, and then one of the others is
She
crying.
forgets.
I'm going to take this that I believe God sort of pushed us out, because I want to tell you, we didn't know how to fly at the beginning. That was probably before, well, even 2000 when it started. It was a huge thing. So I guess it was a bit like that. God pushed us out, and sort of saved us a few times. So 2001, the only thing I can remember about that is C Block was built.
Is this year 2? Second year?
Yes. So that's 2000.
So building.
2001 C Block, because A and B were already there.
Is that
Can I ask, how did you get them students? Did they just come? It was a God thing. You didn't advertise or?
Yes, it did. Before 2000, and even before that, when they thought it was going to go ahead, we had things out everywhere, and are you interested? Expressions of interest, because you can't start a school unless you have a certain number. Now it's even more. Now it's about 50. Once it became known that the school wasn't too bad, teachers didn't have 2 heads and whatnot, then it sort of started to grow. So that's 2001 and 2.
And 2, yep.
Now 2003.
So what was the word for 2002 that you used? If you had one word to describe.
It's faith. Faith.
Yes,
Yeah.
we've still got it sitting there, yes.
Time capsule. Simon did a time capsule with students who left last year. So
It's still sitting there. We're wondering, do we open it? Is this the year of the 10th year, or is last year the 10th year? And on paper, last year's the 10th year, but you celebrated in your 11th year. It's confusing. So
there will be something this
the
year.
idea of the kids opening the time capsule, inviting kids from the past to come back, that's a plan.
We never buried it or anything, did we?
No, because the comment from you was, chances are where we bury it, we'll have to dig it
A
up for a
building
new
will be,
building.
yes, that's right.
Mm.